All right, so it's been a few days. I went all the way to LA for hot pit and came back, and now the car is in much different shape. Cut to a beautiful shot of the engine bay looking totally different than it did last time. Tyson had to make a flight because he's got a life.
I'm literally going to shoot this video without her if she doesn't.
And things to do, so we shot a little bit of stuff earlier, just some features, but I'm going to go through some of the changes that have happened in the last 6 days. Obviously, a lot more things are here, so I can tell you about them. We'll go front to back. I'm not going to steal Tyson's thunder because he's a lot better at explaining all of his nerd stuff than I am. I'm just excited that he's doing it.
This is like a really cool setup. Again, everything is mounted to the chassis. There's an extra fan provision for if power steering becomes a heat problem. There's LED provisions, there's headlight connectors, there's a power steering temperature, which is a very valuable sensor to me after last year.
Oh yeah, you know, we had a lot of power steering issues last year, and
boiled a lot of fluid.
We did. We boiled a lot of fluid, and so like it would be fine in the cold, and then by the end of a run, I'd be like, "Oh, this feels really weird," and we thought it was the racks going, and I'm not sure it was always the racks. I think a few times we swapped it, and it was probably fluid.
Yeah. Well, there was a time where all we did was bleed fluid, and it went away. Like we changed fluid and went away. So, yeah, this now to pull the engine like we did in Utah instead of how we used to do it. There's a single bulkhead connector, a rad lock connector, and there's also a ground rad lock connector. You disconnect those three. That's all the wiring done. You just pull the engine, plumbing, and just plumbing.
Just pull the plumbing.
Just like 16 hoses or whatever it is, and then out. The ignition is also on a connector that hangs out down here. So if you wanted to pull the plugs to check, either to swap them or check it on the dyno, something like that, then that is super easy, and again, mounted in a place where it always is, and very repeatable and very easy. We did a crankcase pressure sensor, we did oil temperature in the pan, we already had fuel pressure, we already had oil pressure. We're going to move the IAT sensor to up here in front of the throttle. Boost solenoid. I did a potted crank and cam sensor, and I put it at the back, so if you ever do go VVTI, then that's already sorted.
I think the best thing for me about all of this is that I have not had to make any requests.
You didn't even tell me what you wanted, and I sketched out what I wanted to do, and then I asked, what did you want? And you basically wanted a phone charger, and
I wanted power for cameras.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure I had work lights. But honestly, after last season, I mean, not really spoiler alert, but behind the scenes information, Tyson basically refused to come back unless he rewired the car.
I don't remember saying that.
Yeah. I think after all the melty fuses and relays, you were like, this car was getting rewired, so...
Well, it did kind of...
He did. And so, since he's the one working on it, he's the one building the harness, and he always plans for literally every possible future situation. Sort of why we're down this, and I'm kind of learning along with
including the unspeakable act.
Do you have money on you?
No. Yeah. That's why I didn't say the word. But, you know, if
ever for some reason
turn to the dark side,
I decide that the turbo is no longer exciting, and
well, it could still be turbo. It'll just have 2 extra round things.
Yeah, 2 extra round things, 2 extra pistons. Basically, engine in. Harness in. There's a few like minor tweaks and sensors and things to plug in, but we're most of the way there. The inside, all the little cardboard bits are replaced by really sexy components. So in here, get in my car. We have the new Blink switch panel. Very excited about that. A little bit more high-end than the 20 switches that I had going before, and most of them weren't labeled, and the labels fell off, and I never knew what switches. I was like, I think it's these 3, and I would leave the car for like a month and drive my other car and be like, I don't know how to make this start, which is kind of embarrassing. So side by side, it's
pretty much the same footprint, but
yeah,
I just again made it easy to take out of the car and the dash in and out. First press is disabled. Second press is lift pump and 1 main pump, and third press is every pump, and then fourth is off. We're back to And so
for some reason we suddenly need way more fuel pressure than we ever have before. We just keep pressing it.
Danny and I have, like, there's a third pump in the fuel cell, and if fuel pressure drops or one of the other two pumps trips its fuse, then that third one automatically kicks on. But if, you know, override's a great safety to have in case of weird things. That, like, I tried to think of everything, but I'm not fortune teller. I don't know.
Well, I mean, you know the sentence that everyone says who works for me, so I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
So, the new throttle pedal, which is not fully mounted yet, and we may make a few further changes to that because I have tiny feet, and this is a small space to fit that. Dash remains the same.
So there's your main driver page, just like you're used to, and it has like the critical stuff like water temp and nitrous pressure, and the LEDs will also light up. We'll probably have to go over that when I'm done programming it, because it might be a little different than last year.
Yeah.
So it has things like a power steering over temp, but it's just a light. It's not something that will shut you down in mid-run. It'll just be a light that comes on, and you can radio and ask me what it means later. It's not, if it's a critical one, like if you lose oil pressure, the whole screen says loss of oil pressure.
Okay.
And then you either drive differently or you're in a place where you can shut down and you're not 3 inches off a wall, then you can do that. But most of the warnings are like fairly subtle.
Right. I like that the loss of oil pressure just says exactly that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big problem.
Start crying. We have our PDMs mounted back here. All these power quick disconnects. It just looks really futuristic and clean, and I'm super happy with it. Apparently this is going to get painted, which is not my... I'm just going on record as saying I like the bare metal look, but apparently I'm told that's not professional enough. Under here is the balance of our PDMs, I believe, and the ECU, and the secret Easter egg for a very special person, and it's really nice under here. And then let's go to the back. Yeah, back here, actually this is probably the most consistent, although we are starting to have water lines which are just enough to be able to loop it and run the car. All the wires are in, as Tyson mentioned. Everything is removable, and the connectors are hard mounted for like quick serviceability, and we have these interchangeable leashes for frequently consumed parts like taillights. We were just having a discussion about if we were going to maybe switch to LED taillights or something like that because of how many we go through. TBD. EC Masters battery isolator, the world's shortest battery cables because we're only going such a tiny distance. The ground also has a similar quick disconnect, and honestly, when you're messing around with stuff like this, not having to use a wrench, it's kind of awesome. Like, everything about this harness is serviceability. It's thinking about worst case scenarios. It's modular in a way that is really next level. Like, I could literally cut the back end off this car and just have to remake the wiring in this section, as opposed to like rewiring everything or running a bunch of wires. So I think Tyson did an amazing job. Honestly, he's not here, so now I can really talk about how awesome he is and how next level his wiring is. It's next level. Way more than I would have even expected when we decided to rewire the car, or when Tyson informed me that we were rewiring the car. I literally didn't even make a wish list. Like, I care about power for shooting media, and I care about having a cool suit, and I want the car to work, and I want it to pass tech. But everything else that he did, in a way, yes, makes his life easier, but makes everyone who works on the car, it makes their life easier. And the documentation is amazing, so I'm really... like, we joke about making the, like, if Tyson gets hit by a bus video.
Speaking of which, while we're talking about overrides, this is the if I ever die in a bus crash, this is what this button does.
Because there's so many features, but the reality is everything is so well documented that I know that it's going to be easy for anyone to work on. It's super logical. That was something fun just happened over there. One of the other reasons that we're doing this wiring upgrade is around data collection, and so we've added so many more sensors than were there before, and we've added provisions for sensors that we haven't quite figured out how to mount yet, but really excited to be able to have that data moving forward, like shock travel sensors. So there's wires that go here with plugs that are ready for when we add that, and I don't know how many drift teams really are even using data like that, and we haven't figured out exactly how to measure it in a way that's going to make sense for us, but just the idea that as I grow as a driver and get into this really technical level where it's like we're making these minor gear changes, we're making these tiny suspension changes, having the data to back up the change and make it more quickly, and having the kind of crew that I can rely on to look at that data and be like, this is what you need to do. It's really cool. I mean, that's the only way I can say it, I guess. It's really cool. Last time I drove this car was Winter Jam, and I was the last person on the track. Like, I finally felt connected with this car in a way that I hadn't felt all season. It was finally all kind of coming together. The car was predictable. Ever since Laguna Seca, I was like, okay, no, now I really like this car. And yeah, that's just evidence of it. We drove the tires off it.